Hello and good afternoon, y'all's people. Thank you for joining me for day 15 of Exodus chapter 15. Exodus chapter 15. Exodus chapter 4, day 15. Thank you for coming in and joining me. The topic for today, because all word is a good word, but the topic for today is forgiving ourselves so that Yah can forgive us. And so we in day 14 we talked a lot about we ended when we talked about the matrix and the origin of it, or some of the people, our ancestors who had a part of it, and it went to an explanation of what it is. And then y'all had dropped into my spirit some words that are associated to the matrix, so it was a very enlightening experience for me, and I hope it was an enlightening experience for you. I hope a seed was planted so that you can go, that you were able to go back and come into some realization about a lot of information associated to, um, not just the matrix, but there's a biblical, historical, reference to the matrix as well. So hopefully you were able to make that connection. Again, I just hope a seed was planted. But again, I want to thank you for coming in to Exodus chapter 4, day 15. And as you all hear me say, I repeat, all word is a good word. But there's very specific messages that the Most High wants you to have every time I come on alive to give, to share with you what the Most High dropped in my spirit to share with you. And so there's always a purpose in the message. So thank you for coming in today to share with me. And so we're definitely going to get started as always. And I know it's a busy time of the day. It's in man's time, Central Standard Time. It's about 3:11 p.m. For some of you all, it might actually be like 1:12 um, Pacific Standard or Eastern Time, and maybe probably what about 5:12 or so, and or all over the world. Because I hope this message touched someone, and I would ask that you share the good word of the Most High and share the message for today. And so again, we're coming in and sharing a good word. And so here, we're definitely going to get started as we always do with the prayer. And as I was saying, that I know that it's a busy time of the day for you all. A lot of you all in like transition, probably riding home from your work day, and trying to get the kids from school or however. So just put it on audio. You don't even have to look at me. Just listen. There may be even just a word, if not the whole message, that sparks your interest and makes you want to go and reproof and study the word for yourself. Something you may pick up and learn, something that may touch your spirit, however it is. These are the reactions the Most High wants you to get from the word and the message today. So just listen if nothing else. So I want to thank the Most High for blessing us in this moment, bringing us to this moment with the breath of life. Because although we take a lot for granted, if there was no life in us, we would not be right now. So we thank the Most High for even the smallest things that sometimes some of us may forget to even realize. Because as we sit in this moment in this physical world, man's world, right? That we don't have to have the grace and mercy of the Most High right at this moment. So thank you for all things right now. And ask that you come into the room, and ask that you come into the spirits and hearts of your people so that they may hear the good word. We touch and believe right now in your spirit. Hallelujah. So let's get into this word. You all know we try to stay on for about 45 minutes to an hour. So let's get on in this word. So here we are, Exodus chapter 4, day 15. And so here we're going to start with this good word today. And so here the good word starts talking about forgiveness. Forgiveness. And so forgiveness, we start in First Kings chapter 8, verses 50. And so let's start there. Bear with me a second. Let me get adjusted here. All right. All right. So bear with me. Just want to be able to. Okay, and so here, um, First Kings chapter 8 verses 50, and it says, wait me a second, I'm sorry, you all. And forgive your people who have sinned against you, and all their transgressions in which they have transgressed against you, and give them compassion before those who carry them captive, that they may have compassion on them. Now, you all know sometimes I step away from the word, right? And so here, I do, even though we just getting started, I need to step away from this word for a moment. And it's ironic that we get started in First Kings chapter 8, verses 50. And we're talking about forgiving their captives. And so let me tell you all this, that I've seen a lot of social media posts, and I've heard a lot of conversations, and I've been engaged in a lot of conversations about a time such as now, because we're coming into this awareness, we're coming into this awakening. And so when people are questioning the words of the Bible, and they're saying, why would a people, here's an associative thought to First Kings 8:50. I want to read it again before I go into this. It says, and forgive your people who have sinned against you, and all their transgressions in which they've transgressed against you, and give them compassion before those who carried them captive, that they may have compassion on them. And so, in essence, what this is saying is saying that there were those who put you in bondage, right? Who held you captive, who oppressed you, and you need to forgive them. And so here is where the conversations are going right now. People can't understand. A lot of people are angry, and a lot of people are saying, "Here we are in a time such as now." And why would a Bible, a word, a scripture tell us to forgive those who oppressed us, to forgive those who put us in this situation, these situations, who made it so that we were underfoot, right? And under labor for hundreds of years. Why should we forgive a people like that? And so, this is what the scripture is saying. And so, right now, a lot of people are questioning, the word. They're questioning the Bible about these things. And so, this is where we have to understand what 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 the word is asking us, because it's it takes a lot to forgive a person who bullied you, right? Put you in certain situations, who made you feel a certain way. It's almost like when you were growing up and you had that bully, and you met that bully years later. You were growing up and you saw that bully. It almost brought back some old feelings in regards to that bully, right? And so imagine, here is not just one individual, but a group of people who have that same feeling. And it's like, what do we really do with these feelings? Here's this word, and this word is telling us that, if we are true, with the spirit, we're supposed to be forgiven. We're supposed to have a forgiving heart. And so I understand this word right here, but what 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 am I really supposed to do with this? I'm human. I'm supposed to have these feelings. I have this anger. I may have lost someone during the times of the P. I may have lost a lot of people, and so now I understand that these things may not actually be true, or maybe these things weren't as they said they were, or I'm not sure what I believe right now. And so here is another situation where I should not be forgiving, right? And so what do we do with our hearts and our spirits at times like this, when the word is telling us? And here in First Kings chapter 8:50 is telling us there are those who have sinned against you, there are those who have oppressed you. And so what do you do now? What do you do now? there's a problem, then we can start that forgiveness process. And so here, again, what does the word say about that? So let me get back to this word. And so I'm going to reread this. Proverbs chapter 28, verses 13. And it says, he who conceals his sin doesn't prosper, but whoever confesses and renounces them finds mercy. And so let me tell you all, I'm going to share something with you, stepping away from the word for a moment, because what I find is a lot of people are coming to me talking about these scriptures. Yep, you can break down scriptures, and yes, you can understand scriptures, but let's place this scriptures aside for a moment. Okay, because even if we weren't coming from the place of the scriptures, your first mindset is saying that it's related to a religion, right? And so that's why people are in resistance right now for this, and that's why people are in opposition of the Bible and the scriptures, and they associate religions, right? And so let's push all that to the side for a moment, okay? Because you know, you know and let's focus on one thing at a time. Let's talk about a person having a problem. Let's talk about a person having, I guess, a drug problem, because we got all kind of issues out here in the world, right? And so let's just talk about a drug problem, for instance. If you had a drug problem and you kept your drug problem in the closet, and a lot of people may not know you have a drug problem because you're functioning. And let's just say there are those who close to you that may not even know you have a drug problem, but they know something is wrong with you, right? They know you aren't who you used to be. They see the physical changes in you. They see a lot of different changes in you because they've been close enough to know you. And so even in this problem, right? Even in this problem, um, if you feel like you have to hide your drug problem, then you know that's an issue. You know the changes that this drug problem has made within you, and so you don't like it, but you're addicted. But in order for you to start getting help for your problem, you got to admit to yourself, yes, I have a problem. Then you got to seek solutions. And let's just say you wanted to keep this quiet and you didn't want anyone to know about your drug problem. Then you have to admit your problem internally, right? And then you go seek help for yourself. But you have to admit the problem. We don't need, and I'm going to say this like I mean, and Most High knows my heart and my spirit, but we wouldn't need a Bible to tell us this. This is internal. We don't need a written word or a document or religion to tell us this. Okay, so so we people associate so much until a thought process when it comes to a religion or a written word or the scriptures. And again, Most High knows I'm not taking away from the scriptures, but what I'm saying to you is this: there was something that was put in you before you were born into this world. And what that was, if you retain a spirit, if you are a spiritual being inside of your body, there was a discernment that was placed into you, right? Before you were born into this physical world, right? And that discernment is part of your spirituality. Even if you came into this world, which we do, without knowing a religion, that discernment was there. And so at a certain time, a child, even a baby, begins to learn that if I cry, I'm going to get some milk, right? If I whine or whimper, my parents will know something is wrong with me. And maybe from the mind of a baby, and I can't speak from the mind of a baby being an adult now, but these are things that we progressively learn from being in the world. These are coping and survival mechanisms. They're given to us. It kind of matches up with the physicalness of the world, the time that we're in. And so here we have to understand. So these things that we deal with of the world, we don't need a religion in order to understand them. We don't need a religion to associate them. And again, I'm gonna keep saying this because I don't want to take away, right? And so I'm saying this to you all, for those of you who are in opposition at a time like this, and you're in resistance of the scripture, the Bible, right? You wouldn't need the Bible You would need to learn it if you listen to your discerning inner spirit. That's what the Most High gave you anyway. Before you were taught the word, you were taught to listen to your inner spirit, your discernment, your inner survival, that inner mechanism that Most High put in you so that you can survive in the physical world. And so getting back and associating this to the scripture here in Proverbs 28:13, you know when you're sinning, because this was talking about admitting your own sin. You know when you're sinning. Nobody has to go and point a finger, or alarm has to go off and say, that person is sinning. You know when you're doing it. And so here, if you feel and you know something is wrong, if you feel it in your discerning spirit that something is wrong, or you're not doing something right, or it doesn't feel good, or whatever, then you have to admit it in order for you to seek help or get help or to be forgiven or start healing. So you don't need anybody to teach this to you. The Most High put it in us anyway, right? And so this is why right now, and this thing is going to come full circle today, right? I want you to hold on to this thought, right? For those of you who are in opposition, and that so those of you who are in resistance right now, the word, because I want you to hold on to this thought. You don't need to open up this, right? This is my little raggedy Bible, so forgive me. You don't need to open it up in order to listen to your discerning spirit the Most High put in you. You don't need it, right? Because all you have to do is pay attention. Now, in the beginning was the Word. In the beginning was the Word. The Word was not written. It wasn't written. It was in you. And it associates the Word to the creation. It was put into you. It was made into you before you knew the word. That's what was supposed to happen. And why you got confused was because men came in and men started editing this, right? And men came in and started giving his story, right? And every king and person that came along that was able to edit this, right, or to condition people or modify the masses, they did that. So when you are in opposition, or when you are in resistance, or when you're in conflict, or a really hot dialogue with somebody about this, I get it. I understand all sides because it is true. Parts of it are true to some degree. But see, this is not the time for us to be debating the fact that the word was edited. Yes, it was. That somebody retold the story and they wrote it down. Yes, they did. That there were families of those who have wealth, or they had duties, or they passed down historical duties of when they edified this, or that there were certain organizations that had built the foundations of religion that had a lot to do with messing this up, or when there were conditions and protocols that were taught to people, and all somebody came along and did was they mimicked the cookie cutter or the template, and they didn't ask any questions, and they fed the people the misinformation. So yes, all of these things happen, but now is not the time to be trying to for us to weave through all of that, because we won't ever get through that mess. What we need to be doing right now is understanding, where do we go from now? We know, and yes, and let's all admit that there were mistakes and all these things happen. It's true. But where do we go from a time such as now? Because we could spend a lifetime trying to go backwards in order to get back where we are. We're still going to be right here. We're still going to get to a certain point. So where do we go from a time such as now? That's what we need to be doing. So here, let's get back into this word. And so here we're going to go to Zechariah 10:6. Bear with me a moment. Bear with me a moment. All right, so we're going to go to Zechariah 10:6. Okay, and so in Zechariah 10:6, it reads, I will strengthen the house of Judah. I will save the house of Joseph, and I will bring them back. For I have mercy on them, and they will be as though I had not cast them off. For I am Yahweh their God, and I will hear them. What is Zechariah chapter 10, verse 6 telling us? It's telling us that it's recognizing a people, a nation. And it was saying, so here at the time Zechariah was given his story, right? And he was saying, the Most High was saying, I'll strengthen the house of Judah, this nation, this group of people. I'll save the house of Joseph, this nation, this group of people, people who are identified as a nation. And Most High was telling Zechariah, I'll bring them back. I'll have mercy on them. For I'll have mercy on them, just like right before they started to mess up. I'm going to start from there as if they never did it. I can do that because I'm Yahweh, their God, and I will hear them. I will forgive them. And that's what was said, right? So we're going to keep on going in this word. Luke chapter 19, verses 10. And it says, For the Son of Man came to seek and to save that which was lost. And I'm going to step away from this word for a moment. Here is another scripture. And here's another scripture associated with a big idea and a big thought and a big theory. And that thought and theory is simply this. It's saying that people are questioning Yeshua, right? Jesus for Christianity. Did he really ever exist? Did he ever exist? Because religion said that he exists. Christianity said he existed. Did he ever exist? And if he did, then if we believe in the Bible, which we're a question, then we really don't know the truth right now. Here, the same thought process is associated to everything that I just went through. How do you know if Yeshua actually existed? How do you know if Yeshua didn't exist? As sure as you are sitting here, there may have been a time Yeshua was in the physical world too. But what I'll tell you, I can tell you for sure what happened. There were people back then, just like there are people now. If you existed now, there for sure were people back then. See, humans, because of emotions and thoughts, right? They don't change. And so there was always an unsurety. There were always jealousies and envies and uncertainties and all of those things that we possess as humans. So if Yeshua existed back then, I'm pretty sure that the people gave him hell just as we do each other right now in a time such as now. I'm pretty sure people question who he was, and was he the son of God, and so when all these other people had all these religions, they were saying in relation to him, you are the son of God, or question, are you really the son of the one that they call God? Because there were these other gods and names that were associated to all these other religions that were being developed and built, right? And so this is where this name of God came about. When Christianity started developing, they said God, and they said Jesus, right? And so even in the transcriptions and the translations of the Romans and the Greeks and the Aramics and all the Assyrians and all these other nations of people, when they came in and they took this history of Yeshua, Jesus, and they pronounced it with a H instead of a J, or they did all these transcribing, or they retelling these stories with dialect. Things got changed. And so going back to Luke chapter 19 verses 10, when it came into question who was the Son of Man, who was the Son of Man? How can there be a Son of Man? Shouldn't there be a son of the one they call God? And even if he existed, Who was God to say that this man existed? So that there was all these uncertainties. There was all this confusion. There was all this conflict then, just as it is now. And so what happened? If the story was true, Yah sent his son or himself in a spirit form through the womb of a woman, a physical woman, right? And I'm going to bring that back because remember we talked about the matrix, right? Bring this back for a minute. Bring this back for a minute because I'm associate some information to you all. We talked about the matrix, right? It talked about being born into this matrix, this confusion. This confusion is the matrix, right? And called QAL, Neo, Neo, right? PIEL, to cleanse, to learn, to strengthen. Called QAL, it's always operating. Neo, it changes and it modifies. PUAH, to kill all males at birth population, right? These are all the words the Most High dropped into my spirit that I had to go to research to associate with the matrix. And what am I saying to you? What am I saying to you is this. It basically means that here is this grand idea which has all of these arms, these theories, these possibilities, and these negatives, these positive, all these things. And what makes this matrix so confusing is that here you got all these people. Here's this matrix. And you got all these people bringing in all their own thoughts, opinions, and things about it. Why? Because it changes and it modifies birth based on who's saying it and who's talking about it. Why? Because this thing is always this big matrix is always growing and getting bigger because you got all these people coming to add to it, right? And so here's PIEL, right? It to cleanse, to learn, to strengthen, right? And so coming out of this matrix is this dialogue, right? This dialect, right? These protocols and traditions and these religions and all of these things, right? And so what do we do about all this confusion? What do we do about it? We got to figure out truth. We got to open it up, and it's got to be one truth. One truth. And so here, at a time as now, if from the beginning what was until what is right now, all this confusion is right here, right? And so we got to figure out from this time and now, let's find one truth. If we're going to put a lot of energy into something, let's figure out the truth. So how do we find out what's true? To cleanse. PIEL means to cleanse, to learn, to teach, to strengthen. So when we talk about PIEL, the Most High dropped this in my spirit, I'm going to tell you again. We got to clean away what was already taught to you. We got to uncondition those minds because you were conditioned. We got to clean all that away. And then what do we have to do? We have to learn a new way. We can't relearn anything. We have to learn a new way. And see, once some of us that were sent from the Most High, sending people, he ain't using the old ones that been here, that was part of the problem, right? That won't even admit they're part of the problem, right? Because some of them fell away and some of them are still here in opposition and resistance and undercover and underveiling, right? So the Most High sends in some new ones. And even on the end of what's to come, the Most High said, I'm not going to use that method again. If you learn something or I teach you something, it's going to be direct in the spirit from me to you. I won't need any teachers. I won't need people like me to be coming in here trying to open this up. But for now, when I send the ones that I send for you, they're going to help you to understand what should have been from the beginning. Because in the beginning was just the word. It was just the word. It wasn't even documented or written on the tablets. It was just the word. And they're going to help you to learn the way I intended it to be. And once a few of them understand it, or as I send my word down and use them, I'm going to send what I want them to say, because it's the message that I'm going to send out to my people, to the house of Joseph, to Judah, right? To Israel, to those who were lost. And then I'm going to use my appointed and called to teach them, right? And then as they become into the one truth, we got to strengthen that truth, right? And all the while they're waking up, right? And they're becoming aware, they got to understand that PUAH is still going on. What is it? What is it? I'm going to tell you what it reads, okay? We got to make this connection. I'm going to tell you what it reads. It reads, let me go back to this because my computer happened. And when you start getting into the words, things start happening. I tell you, it reads, I'm going to read it exactly what it says, okay? Because I don't want to take away. Bear with me a second. PUAL, okay? And so what it reads is this. I want to read it verbatim, word for word. So bear with me. Lost my place in the computer today. Give me a hard time. All right. And so it reads, what is PUAH? It says to kill all males at birth. Population control. Only obey God's ethical imperatives. So at the end of this PUAH, it says this thing is going on in the world at a time like this. Affirmation, hallelujah. This thing is coming around full circle because it says population control is going on. And so, how do you know at a time when the people are lost? How do you know at a time when there's confusion in the world what you are to do, what you are to listen to? Whom should you open your ears up to? Whom should you open your spirit up to, right? It says only obey Yah's ethical imperatives. What does that mean? I'm going back because this thing coming full circle tonight. Before there was the written word, there was your discerning spirit. And so if you obey what your inner spirit tells you, what y'all put in you, you're gonna be all right. Because evil is coming to add to the confusion even more. It's becoming increasingly more because evil knows it's in already. So evil is trying to take all of us with it. And so it's coming to add confusion to confusion that was already there. Pound upon pound. Confusion, confusion, confusion. It's coming. It's increasing. It has a boldness. And so because of this, when they started taking away what man messed with, you still left with what you started with. Your inner discerning spirit. Yah is coming to connect with you through the spirit for the people that was lost. Let's go back to this word here. I want to repeat it, right? Because this word said, Luke chapter 19, verses 10. It said, for the Son of Man came to seek and to save that which was lost. It was a general, specific term. That could have been anything. That was everything. Everything that was lost to these nations, Judah, Joseph, house of Joseph, Israel, Yah's people, who were defined as the nations but not specified unless their names were specifically given. But they lost all of these things, right? And so here Most High said, I'm going to come, right? In a form that the people can meet with, that they can understand. I got to come looking like them so they can receive me. And if they receive me, they just might listen. So I got to figure out how to meet the people, how to greet the people so the people can receive me, so I can open up their hearts and minds to get them to see and understand what I want them to understand. Because at some point they got lost, right? Keep going. 5 covenants. What were the 5 covenants? What are the covenants? The covenants are the promise. The covenants are the promise. So here, let's understand what these covenants was, right? I'm going to use the scriptures, but I'm helping you understand what the covenants are for some of those who didn't understand what the covenants are. So the covenants are the promise. And so here, there were times, several times during the world when the Most High promised us some things. He promised Yah's people, right? A specific nation some things and made these promises. If you just do this, this is gonna happen. Cause and effect, causative effect. If you do this, this is gonna happen. You don't need the word for that, right? You just need an understanding. And even there are some who come to confuse and take away the understanding of it, right? But you got to understand this right now. Right now, understand it. There was a promise made to you so you can get to the promise. But because evil already knew and can see what your promise was, because they have this a lot of the same abilities as the Most High, right? Because the Most High made them too, or they came from the same place. It's in question, and but nevertheless, they still knew the promise. And so, in order to, yeah, they didn't make you, right? It was said that a sovereign spirit made you people, us, right? This sovereign spirit, because the evil could have went and made his own people, but he didn't. He wanted to steal Yah's people, right? And so, and forgive me for saying pronouns, because you all know I try to avoid those pronouns like he, she, and so on. But nevertheless, sometimes I have to use them just because I'm speaking, okay? And so here, evil is saying, um, I already knew what so the sovereign spirit, Yah, I am, however, evil said it, right? Has this promised these people, this nation, a promise to get to this glorious, miraculous place. But what I'm gonna do is, so they don't get to it, and I'm gonna keep getting in the way, is I'm gonna confuse them. I'm going to use their emotions, right? Because they're human and they're greedy and they're jealous and they're envious and they're bitter, right? And they covet, right? And they're tempestuous and they're judgmental and they're all of these things which I know that they have in them, right? Also, they do have that discerning spirit. So I'm gonna take the one thing that I know that the Most High put in them so they can have their understanding, and I'm gonna keep getting in the way of that. And I'm gonna send these spirits. I'm gonna send jealousy, and I'm gonna send envy, and I'm gonna send covetousness, and I'm gonna send judgment, and I'm gonna send all of these spirits, right? So they can keep on being confused, and so they won't get to this promise. I'm gonna send them often, and I'm gonna send them all the time, right? And so that some of them are gonna be able to, they're gonna kill themselves with these from these spirits. They're gonna they're gonna believe so much into these spirits they won't make it to the promise. So here, I want you to understand that before I get into telling you what these covenants are. So there were 5 promises, okay? And so here, these 5 promises. One, it was the universal promise, the covenant. It was called the Noahic covenant. And so what happened? And I'm gonna read it. You all know I don't say God, but I'm gonna read it because I don't want to take away from the word. So it says, while God announces his covenant with Noah and all creation prior to the flood. So that was in Genesis chapter 6:18. And so it says, he established it after the deluge subsides. The deluge was a great flood, and subsides disrupted. So he solemnly promises that a suspension of natural order would never ever happen again or interrupt the fulfillment of humanity's creational mandate. So that was in Genesis chapter 8, verses 21 through 22, and also in Genesis chapter 9, verses 11 through 15. Go back and read it. So what? Let's understand this. What was this? What was this promise? When the people were doing the same thing back then that they are doing now. They're resistant, they're in opposition, they're confused, they're in conflict, they're battling against each other. There was evils, there was all kind of things going on back then, just as it was now, right? During the time of Noah. And so the Most High sent and used someone who looked like them and said, I'm going to take this person and I want people to listen to him. Although, as the story was said, they didn't want to listen to Noah because they knew him as a drunk, right? And and so, even though he looked like them and he was among them, the Most High took someone who had these problems and these issues. This thing coming for a circle today, took them this person who had these problems and this issue, but I'm gonna use him. I'm going to use Noah, right? And so people are going to question him because he was a public drunk. People knew him, right? And they're going to laugh at him and talk about him. But maybe there's some who are going to listen. And so if I send someone who is like them, right? He's human. He has issues. He has problems. But maybe they'll listen to him. And if this is my appointed one, and so maybe somebody would just get saved, right? Maybe somebody would just listen, but nobody did, right? Because part of the instruction Most High gave Noah, as we were told, biblical history was told. Most High knew that the people wouldn't change because after all the chances they didn't. That's why the Most High sent this mandate. Hello, this mandate, right? None of these people are going to be saved. And so, if I'm going to destroy the world with all these people, then I'm going to make sure that I can start all over again. Take two of everything, male and female, so they can procreate again. Put them on this vessel I told you to build, so that excuse me, so that when this flood subsides, the deluge, right? They can start creating all over again, right? That's what happened. And so maybe if I start all over with the new creation, they can get to the promise. Keep going. The Abrahamic covenant. What was it? The promises encompassed by the patriarchal covenants. So those God, Yah, established with some men. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, right, were the men that the Most High made this promise with. Abraham being the first, right? And so they were recorded in Genesis chapter 12, verses 1 and 3. And so what happened with this promise? The essence of these divine promises is that Yah would bless Abraham in two ways. Yah would make him into a great nation and so make his name great. The second part of this promise, through him, Yah would mediate blessings to others, all the people on the earth. So here, understand, it's very simple. Here was the promise. I'm going to take these three men in their time, in their generation, and these are my appointed and called, right? One came before the other, and then the last one, there was three. And so I'm making all of them the same promise, provided they do what I say. They just got to do what I say. They just have to listen and listen to the spirit. Because there's some that's going to come to mess this thing up. But as long as they remain steadfast and listen to what my will is, listen to the discerning spirit, meet me in the spirit so I can help them along the way. That's all they got to do. Then they'll get to the promise. And because of this promise, it's going to be two things that come out of this promise, right? I'm going to make you a great nation. The world, you'll be renowned throughout the world, the universe. And then also those who come after you are going to receive that same blessing. So as long as you teach them, you learn them, you strengthen them, right? This matrix thing is repeating. As long as you teach them and learn them and strengthen, and they stay strengthened in the word, and they keep practicing and practicing, learning, and you sharing the good word and the good truth, they're going to get to this promise on the end, right? That's what was supposed to happen. That's the Abrahamic covenant. Step away from this word, and I'm not going to stay here. But what I want you to do, y'all's people, I want you to go and Google the Abrahamic covenant 2021, 2022. And I want you to find out and I want you to research and I need you to understand what you see because that's for the time right now. You got to understand what's going on right now so you can know how to climb over it or get around it, right? Remember that song when you were in kindergarten or however some of you all might be around the same age, and the song was saying you got to figure out how to get over it, get around it, and however the thing is you just got to get to the other side. That's what we got to do. Okay, I'm gonna keep going. Now, the Mosaic covenant. What is that? The Mosaic covenant, right? So here is the Mosaic covenant. It's where Yah established the Mosaic covenant just after a significant development anticipated in Genesis 15, right, had taken place. The emancipation of Abraham's descendants from oppression in a foreign land. Hey, listen to this. I'm going to read this again. In the Abrahamic covenant, there was three that came at different times. Abraham, then Isaac, then Jacob, right? And Joseph was mentioned, right? These were these people who represented nations, and they were there in their times. Okay. Now here is a different time, and so the promise was always the same. The promise never changed. It just got these different names based on who was interpreting it. Right? It was still the same promise, and this promise was the Mosaic covenant. Right? And said it said Yah established the Mosaic covenant just after a significant development had taken place. It references Genesis 15, so you can understand it, go back and look at it. And so it says the emancipation of Abraham's descendants from oppression in a foreign land. What happened? What? So it's simple. It is what it says. Okay, it literally says here, remember, Abraham was the first one that fell under Abraham covenant, and it said the descendants would get the same promise and the same blessings. So here it's saying, it went back. It went. That was in chapter 12, right? Remember, you always hear me say time sequential, man-made time sequential. So in Genesis chapter 12, these promises came down in these generations for those Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in their time. And so time went by, and so here was Genesis 15, and it was a certain time, and so here was the Most High saying, "Here's the same promise." And so I remember Abraham, right? And Abraham was my son, right? And I promised this promise. This was the second part of the promise that I will mediate all the same blessings and promises to all your descendants when they were scattered to all parts of the world. So all of your descendants are going to get this promise, provided they do this right thing, right? And so here was the Mosaic covenant that came into place in its time. And so here it's saying that there was a people that are going to be oppressed in a foreign land. And so what's going to happen to these people? They're going to be removed from their oppression. And what is their oppression? It's bondage, it's looting, it's plundered, it's taking away their heritage, it's taking away the spirituality, it's taking away all of these things. It was a simple term that says their oppression. It didn't go into specifics. It was very vast and very general because their oppression could mean a whole lot of things. It did. So it kept the term general. It didn't go into all of these things. Anything that puts you under oppression, understand this. Anything that puts you under duress, understand this. Anything that made you distressed is oppression. Back then, in the beginning, the times that was, even now, if it distresses you or puts you under some type of unnatural situation, it oppresses you. Anything that puts you in a natural situation and inflicts a feeling gives you duress. And all I want you to look up the word duress. Go look it up, please. Because when you find the word duress, oh my gosh, you're gonna find all these associative words, and you're gonna be like, man, hey, that's me. That's me. I understand that. You're gonna just start doing checklists, check boxes. Okay? I'm gonna keep going. So here we're still talking about these covenants. I gave you three. It says, what do we do at this point in time? And we gaining all this understanding and all this knowledge. What do we do? So here, let's talk about what we should be doing. We should be and here I'm gonna give you, I'm gonna go back to some general information of the people in their time of this Mosaic covenant. It says the focus at Sinai. What happened to Mount Sinai? What happened to Mount Sinai with Moses? That's when the tablets, the word that was there in the beginning, became the written word. The word that was there in the beginning became the written word. So it says the focus on Sinai is less on what Abraham's descendants must do in order to inherit the land, and more on how they must conduct themselves within the land. Right? What is this saying? This thing coming full circle today. Because there was confusion about this. Because it was edited and re-edited and translated and transposed and all these things by man. We want you to focus less on this, because the original part of what was given to Moses on Mount Sinai, as history says, biblical history says, because that happened, I just want you to focus on what were they doing, just like they were doing before this word came and it was written on Mount Sinai. Before I wrote on the tablets and gave it to Moses, all they had was the word. They had what the Most High said, right? And so here, in the time of the Mosaic covenant, here's the Most High saying again, don't focus on that. I just want you to figure out how to conduct yourselves at a time as now. How do you conduct yourself right now with the understanding of what I want you to do? How are you going to get to that promise of what I told those that were there before you? And if you believe it, then how are you going to get to the promise? What do you need to do? Right? And it says how they must conduct themselves within the land as the unique nation that Yah intended them to be. I want you to go read Exodus chapter 19, verses 5 and 6, and references this. It says, in order to be Yah's treasured possession, the kingdom of priests, and the holy nation. Israel. It went back to talking about Israel. It didn't talk about these different houses, right? Because when Israel was taken out of the bondage in Egypt, it was all these people from different places that were made slaves, right? All these people from different places, even in Egypt, that were made slaves. That was a foreign land. So here's these times where we have Egypt, the first bondage. We have then here we are at this time of now, and there was a time when there was this place, right? That they put these people in bondage. And so there were different times throughout history that there was a bondage, a specific bondage, right? And so here the Most High said, as long as these people were in bondage, understand that I'm coming to pull you out. I'm coming to save you, and I'm going to send one who is going to save you. But as long as you just listen to me, because they don't want you to have this. Some of them got killed for having this. Some of them got killed for killed for if they saw this. Some of them got killed if they spoke it, right? And so just internalize, learn, teach, and keep it to yourself. Is if you internalize and you know what I'm asking for you to do, I'm going to come to pull you out. Okay? And so what happened? It said, and so these different people that was in bondage in this one place in Egypt, right? And so the Most High didn't just say, hey, you from Madrid, or hey, you from the West Indies, or hey, didn't define these people as that. They were just simply slaves. They were enslaved. And these were people from different nations that got into this one place, and they were just slaves in bondage, right? And so the Most High called them Israel. Because if they had this common thoughts, they fell under this one umbrella, Israel. Okay? And so the Most High said, Israel, you must keep the covenant by submitting to its requirements. If you believe that I'm coming to pull you out, if you've shared this information among all the other slaves, and for those who want to believe me, and you want to get to this promise and this thought that I'm coming to pull you out, you are now Israel. You fall under this one nation. You fall under this one common thought, right? And it says, doesn't matter where you came from. It doesn't matter what you believe when you got to Egypt and you got enslaved, right? Because when you got there, they start to give you what they wanted to give you. They told you who you were. They told you what you were. They told you you were property. They made you labor while they enjoyed your labors. It happened then, and then it happened again, and then it happened again. It was the same oppression defined by many terms, right? And then back then, let's get back to where we were talking about, right? They were defined under Israel, right? And so here it says the stipulations that were set forth in Exodus chapter 20 through 23. Go back and read it. Exodus chapter 20, verses 23, right? Because here it's saying to you, if you believe on the word, if you believe the written word, it's telling you to go back in Exodus chapter 20 and 23 and read what were the requirements to get to the covenant that was actually there before it was written down. Okay? And it says by adhering to these thoughts, these internalizing these things to do. It says the subsequent covenant obligations given at Sinai. What does that mean? Even though the word was first, in the beginning was the word, and then it became written, it was the same things. It was some of the same things. Later on, it was edited and changed. But what was the original instructions? It was given. It was word of mouth. And then it became written. It was given at Mount Sinai to Moses, right? So let's understand what this was. This is talked about, this thing coming full circle now. We at 15, right? Here, this was your discerning spirit. You never knew the word because it was put in you. So let's understand that. You need to know what grace is. What is grace? By such means, Abraham's descendants were not only following the footsteps of their ancestor, Genesis chapter 26, verses 5, but also facilitate the fulfillment of Yah's promises, Genesis chapter 18 and 19. What does that mean? Here's some of the things. What is grace? What is grace? Being able to forgive, extending forgiveness, having understanding in order so you can say, hey, even if it was something was bad, being able to take the time out to say, why did it happen? Why did you do that? And then on the end of it, being able to show mercy and grace in spite of, right? And so the Most High does that to us all the time. You don't need this to tell you that. It was internalized. It was put in you. What other things did it say? It said practice the real Sabbath. It practiced the real Sabbath. It was written down, right, on Mount Sinai. But it was also, you learn this. Remember, right? Learn it. Learn it, right? What is the real Sabbath? On the 10th day of the 7th month, you must deny yourselves. You shouldn't do any work. It doesn't matter when the slaves were in bondage and they became one nation. They were called Israel. It doesn't say, it says whether you were native born or whether you were a foreigner, and they were all together, living together, residing, right? It says because on this day of atonement will be made for you to cleanse yourself. Remember, this thing come full circle, PUAH, right? It says umpire. It says cleanse yourself. You know what? We know that you're struggling and you're in this human body and you get tempted and you face all these emotions. So here's this one day a week, because we know you go through 6 other days. Take the time, sit down, connect spiritually with the Most High, and atone for anything that you did wrong. Speak to the Most High. Get an understanding. Meditate. Just connect. Use this day to connect. We get so busy with life, right? Life is always coming at us. You need one day, if not all the time. You should be doing it several times throughout the day. All of us haven't gotten there. But take this one day Give it to me. Rest your body and your mind. Listen to see if I'm calling you. Listen to see if I want to connect with you. Listen to see if I want to tell you something. Listen to see if I'm calling you or appointing you for a mission, right? Because you here. Give back to me, right? If I'm giving you life, I need you to give life to somebody else. If I'm coming to pull you out, I need you to go pull somebody else out. I might need you to do that, right? So here you're going to practice the Sabbath, because how you going to know if you're always so busy doing other stuff? Because you're not, who's so perfect that you can do 12 other things and think into them perfectly every time? Nobody can, right? So you got to do one thing at a time and focus. And the Most High said, get rid of all that. Find me. Come find me. Come look for me, right? And it says, you got to cleanse you. Therefore, before the Lord, you will be clean from all your sins. It is a day of Sabbath rest, and you must deny yourselves. Don't do the work. It's hard to not do something. It's hard for me to not do something. Don't do it. Take the time to rest. You'll be so much better for it. And I need you, and then the word said, make sure this thought, I'm telling you, you have to put this into practice, and it has to remain that way. I want you to keep it that way. I don't want you to do anything else, right? And so here I'm gonna continue. It says, it is a lasting ordinance. It perpetuates both of their names, right? So go to Genesis chapter 21, verses 12, 2 Samuel chapter 7, 12 through 16. And it says, the descendants of both must keep Yah's laws. So what? We're talking about the original people, right? Remember Noah, then Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, all of them had descendants, generations. Here's one generation, here's the next generation. So here was these ideas. You don't have to know the religions. These ideas were always there. And as long as you share it to your kinfolk, that your children and each generation, and they maintain it, right? You don't have to let all these religions come in. Keep this, what I'm telling you, right? If you do that and you keep God's laws, the offspring of both will mediate an international blessing. So you're going to get to this promise. As long as each generation comes, you share it, you teach it, you strengthen the ideas, and you hold it, you hold fast to it, right? You're going to get to this promise. Each time another generation is born, and here was this word of mouth. In the beginning was the word. Here was this word of mouth, right? And long as you're using the word of mouth, not this, long as you're using the word of mouth and you teaching it to each generation, and each generation is teaching it to the next, and you holding on to it and you put it into practice and you strengthening it, each generation is getting closer to the promise. Remember, evil has always come to mess you up. All right? And so here, what's going to happen as you get closer to the promise? Well, I'm getting ready to circle this. It's going to come full circle. We're going to end for day 15. What's going to happen when you get to the promise? Okay? My apologies. What's going to happen when you get to the promise? It said, look up Isaiah chapter 11, verses 4 and 9. And it says, but he will judge the poor with righteousness and decide with equity for the humble of the earth. He will strike the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips he will kill the wicked. They will not hurt nor destroy in all my holy mountain, for the earth will be full of knowledge of Yahweh, as the waters cover the sea. I'm going to repeat what I said before I read Isaiah chapter 11, verses 4 and 9. For each generation that hold fast to the word that was shared, for each generation that held steadfast to the word, they got closer to the promise. So what's going to happen if it strengthens this idea, right? They're going to get closer to the kingdom. So there's going to be a restoration of the Messiah's kingdom. It says it in Isaiah 11, verses 4 and 9. What's going to happen? Remember, I said evil is always coming to mess you up, right? So you don't get to the promise. What's going to happen? The Most High is going to come and judge the poor with righteousness, decide with an equal scale, right? Who's humble, who's not. He's going to separate the sheep from the wolves, right? He's going to, sheep from the wolves. You all hear this term, sheep from the wolves, mean there are those who are lost, don't even know they're lost. And because they're naive, they can still be saved. Here, and so, the sheep and the wolves, um, they're separate, right? They're still the creatures, though, right? And so here's these wolves, right? They look like sheep, but they really are wolves, right? They're in disguise. And so really they're working for evil, but they looking like sheep and like they're meek and like they're humble, but they're really not. And so here was the Most High saying, I'm going to decide who's really the sheep's in disguise. I'm going to pull back the veils, right? I'm going to uncover those sheep who really are wolves. I'm going to show you all, right? I'm going to show you all who they are. It's happening at a time such as now. And then here his Most High saying, I'm going to show you, when I show you who they are, I'm going to destroy them, right? With the breath of my lips, I'm going to kill the wicked. And it says, these people no more will they hurt nor destroy anything in all my holy mountain. They won't make it to the covenant because I gotta shut them down. I gotta terminate them. Because see, all this time from the beginning, all the way until this time when I came, I let them be. I gave them a chance. They were still messing with my people. They still got in the way of the promise, right? And it says now, I'm going to kill the wicked ones. And it says for the earth. So this time is of now. People are waking up to who I am. And they still getting in the way of that too, right? And so it says, here's the time of now when people are waking up to understand who I really was. They're waking up to understand there was a lie that was implemented. They're waking up to understand there was a conditioning that was implemented. They're waking up to understand that who they are and that who they may be. Are they Judah? Are they Israel? What tribe did they come from? So these people are waking up, and here's evil still getting in the way. I got to take them up out of here so the people can move on, so the people can get understanding. Because as they waking up to my word and to who I am, here's evil coming to pound and down again. I got to move them out the way. During this time, which is the time of now, Yah's people, Judah, Israel, right? It's saying, here's the time right now. More people in the world know who I am than ever before. And it said there's so many people that know who I am, right? That by comparison is as much water as covers the sea as people know who I am. And even though they may not know totally who I am, there was a seed that was planted. Maybe they have an inkling. Maybe they have an interest. Maybe they read something. Maybe somebody said something. And I said my call and appointed. And maybe they listened on a live. Or maybe they were sitting in the place and somebody said something. And that was my call and appointed that I sent in. But nevertheless, here I am. Now, I'm going to end this thing full circle. The people that were enslaved and they were taken, right? And they were taken to the foreign land. I'm sorry, I apologize. The people that were enslaved and taken to the foreign land. So this place that oppressed them and duress them and distress them. I want you to make sure you write this down. Isaiah 13, chapter 17. Isaiah chapter 13, verses 17, 18, and 20. And it says, behold, I will stir up the Medes against them. The Medes don't value silver. And as for gold, they don't care about gold. Their bows will dash the young men in pieces. They shall have no pity on the fruit of the womb. Their eyes will not spare children. Isaiah 13:20, it says, it will never be inhabited, neither will it be lived in from generation to generation. The Arabian will not pitch a tent there, neither will shepherds make their flocks down there. This was talking about a place called Babylonia. It was talking about a people. It was talking about a people who didn't care about life, people who didn't preserve life, people who hated peace, people who were just evil, inherently evil, and evil begets evil. So it was an evil existence, and there was generations that came just as the here was God's people, and each generation was supposed to inherit the promise, and they was supposed to strengthen each other with the goodness of the good word of the Most High, and it was supposed to get better with each generation. But here was evil's generation, and evil begat evil, and so each generation became more evil than the next. And so here at this time, when they talked about these Medes, this people. Who were the Medes? Ask yourself that. Go look it up. And where did the Medes start? Like, what is their origin, and who are they now? Right? And so the Most High said, how are you going to identify them? They're not going to value silver. They're not going to value gold. They're going to have weapons of war. They're not going to care who you are when they take your life. They're not going to care if it's children. They're not going to care if it's a pregnant woman. They're not going to care if it's another person, another human. And if it's a man, it's really bad. So these Medes, who are they? Again, these people, right? They're so evil, right? That they're not going to care. They're just going to take life. They don't care about life. And so here it says, because of this, Babylon is place where these people are. Once I destroy it, it'll never be inhabited again. Neither will it be lived on from generation to generation. And it says, then it specifies a specific people. It says, it mentions the Arabians. It says the Arabian. When the word mentions people specifically or things specifically, pay attention. It's done for a reason, right? When it talks about the Arabian will not pitch a tent there, neither will shepherds make their flocks lie down there, which means that these Arabians, these people, will never live in Babylonia. They're going to come there. They're going to be a part of the destruction, but they're never going to be able to live there, right? Even though they think they are. And then it says here's some shepherds. Here's these people. When we talk about shepherds, we talk about those people who assisted in the genocide, people who assisted in the misinformation, people who assisted in the misdestruction, people who knew the truth and they didn't teach the truth. So these people who called shepherds, they were the leaders, right? Who did things wrong. It said, neither will the shepherds make their flocks lie down there again. They won't be able to mislead the people anymore. They won't be able to condition the masses anymore. I'm going to knock down those leaders. I'm going to take them out, right? I'm going to take their lives. These were the things that were prophesied against Babylon. Babylon was Babylon, Babylonia then. Where is it now? And the people asking this question. Where's Babylon? Babylonia, where is it? When it speaks of the Arabian, who are these people right now? When it speaks of the Medes, let's know the origin of these people and who are they now? Their names may have changed, but they're still the same people. The promise became different covenants, but it was always the same promise. Israel was Israel when they were Egypt in a time of bondage, but they were nations, people scattered to different parts of the world, and they became intertwined in different places. Nevertheless, they are the descendants of the promise. And Most High said, even though I'm going to scatter them because they refuse to listen, they're going to be one. They're going to come back to be Israel again. And when they come back to be Israel, I'm going to call them Judah. They're going to have one mind, right? But here it's evil. And evil will say, I'm going to get in the way of the Abrahamic covenant. I'm going to confuse you all so you won't know the covenant. Even though I'm going to use the same name as what the Most High said, because that was the original one, right? The original one of the original covenants. So I'm going to come and I'm going to use the same name to confuse the people. So the people are going to say, Abraham covenant over here. Abraham coming over there. Look up under pull the covers back. Do your research to find out who's implementing this Abrahamic covenant. Who's implementing this Abraham covenant? Where was the original words, right? And the information associated with this covenant and who's behind and who made this up. Is this old? Is this new? Look, do the research and understand before you jump into sides. This is where we at, y'all. People at a time such as now. This thing came full circle today. All word is a good word. We get into who knows who. If you notice and you listen to me, you stay with me the whole life, it's asking you these questions for you to understand who are you? Where did you come from? What were the origins of you? Who was supposed to get the promise? Who's going to get to the promised land? Who's your enemy? What was the origin of your enemy? What was their name in the beginning? And what is their name now? How do I identify? How do I identify myself? How do I know my enemy? Who keeps getting in the way of the promise? I need to know who they are so when I see them, I'll know what I need to do. That's what we are, y'all's people. That's what we are. I thank the Most High for this word today. This our word, like I said, is a good word, but we get into the hidden prophecy. It's going to answer some of these questions that you all need to know. You need to understand. Because if you're confused by all the confusion and the conflict, and you don't know who you are, how are you going to understand what you need to do to get to the promise? Because the word already told you. The people have to be able to understand what I need them to do without all the misinformation and the interference. So, and the same words that I taught in the beginning, the same word that was instructed, the same instructions that was there before it was put onto the tablets in Mount Sinai, it was the same thing, right? But they came and they started messing up my word. So I need you to go back to the beginning, the instructions when the word was the word, right? And it was just spread through the mouth, right? Just figure out who's giving you the word and if it's the proper word, and look at the person. Look at the person. If they're an exemplary person, if you see love on them, do they have hate? What is their life like? Examine. The word says to examine the source. Nobody's perfect. I'm not perfect, but I know the Most High was using me. Noah was a drunk, but the Most High used them. So examine the source. Don't hold somebody what they were against them if the Most High has used them and appointed to call them. What are they saying? Because at the point that they started saying what they were saying, examine from there. Okay? And so listen, pay attention. Even if you don't believe into the source, listen to the words. Okay? And then when you listen to the words, discern with the spirit. What is it making you feel like? Are you just listening because it feels good? You just want to hear the gospel songs because you can, it makes you feel good. But what is the source? Examine the source right now. Anything that you're taking to your spirit, examine the source. That's what we need to be doing right now. So we can stop being confused. So we can stop getting lost. And so we can get to this truth. Please come back. Day 16, Exodus chapter 4, day 16. Go back and read those scriptures and examine them. We're going to pick up in Isaiah chapter 14, right? We're going to talk about Jacob's and Israel's, with that bondage and that oppression that they were under, that duress, that distress they were under. There's going to be a reversal of that. This is getting good, y'all. People, it's getting good. It's going to be reversal of that bondage. I need y'all to come back. I need you all to understand. I need you all to implement. I need you all to examine. I need you all just to really, really understand. Okay? Because I'm going to sit here on these lives. I'm on 3 lives. I'm on YouTube. And I'm going to say this in front of who's ever listening. The Most High has called me. And not just me, but there's others that were called and appointed for a time such as this. And I can speak for me right now. If I'm not doing the work that the Most High sent me, then my life won't be spared. I gotta do the work. And I'm not even doing the work to spare my life. I'm doing the work because I now love it. This is my passion. This is also my mission. And if I just say if one person just comes and say, I understand, I get it, and I want to know more, and your thirst becomes for the living water, You get thirsty for the water, right? You get thirsty for the water. It's the living word. It's not me reading those scriptures. It's not me sharing this information. It's the same thing that was in the beginning, the living word. Come back for it. Listen to who's giving it to you. Is the water living or is it bittersweet with wormwood? Wormwood is the poison that the Most High said is in Revelations. It said the waters will be turned into poison, which means the word, the living word, will be changed and misinterpreted, and it will confuse you and it will ultimately kill you. Or are you looking for the living word, the living waters, the word that brings you life? Examine all things, reproof all things. Go back and study it. Go back and examine the source of who's giving you the information. And from there, please come back for day 16. As always, we're closing with a prayer. Most High, thank you for your word today. Thank you for using me. I know and I believe that this word touched somebody today. I trust and I hope and I believe that it will open up the hearts and the minds of many, that they may be able to grasp just a straw, just the seed, if not more of your word. Thank you for being here, using me in the spirit. Let your spirit abound to all of your people, and that those calls stay in protection, not just in your word and under your word, but under you, Most High, so that everything of you may go forth just as you intended, so that your people can get to the promise. Strengthen every one of your people with the purity, with an understanding, and that even though they be themselves, that they fall under your grace and mercy, that even that they can understand, which is why they're here. Until I see you all again, right? Day 16. Peace, love, and might.